Welcome, everyone. I call the March 9th, 2026 meeting of the Carver School Committee to order at 6:01 p.m. If everyone could please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I just want to make one quick note before we get started. We moved comments from the general public to down below on the agenda after the budget is presented. That way, people will have an opportunity to hear what the budget looks like at this point and then ask questions after it. Other than that, everything should move ahead as scheduled, but I just wanted to make that notation. So.
Okay. Yeah, so I actually want to start with just a recognition for the community, actually. So obviously we faced a challenging snowstorm as a community. First, thank you to Carver's DPW, who I think did an outstanding job in terms of getting the roads cleared. Having to travel through several towns, I thought Carver did really well. It was really exceptional. And we had to do some modified bus routes for a period of time. So thank you for our transportation department and our bus drivers who went out on that Thursday, drove all the routes to determine what they thought was safe and what they could get access to, because the reality was there were some roads in Carver that weren't accessible. And we moved forward with school with that modified bus route, and really wanted to thank the parents and the community, because I know that wasn't easy. I know that presented some challenges for families. But I think people really responded really well to that. We certainly had a lot more students dropping off at school in both buildings for that week. So we saw that at both buildings. We had extended drop-offs, a little longer, extended pickups. But today we went back to normal bus routes, and everything was very smooth. It was a very natural day today. And obviously we see a lot of melting going on out there, so that's a positive too. But I just want to acknowledge and thank. We realize that the modified bus routes create some challenges for people, and we really want to thank the community for their support during that time in terms of managing, maybe this thing that might be a once-in-a-lifetime storm. I'm sure we'll see another one like it. Those who were alive during the blizzard of '78 saw something similar. And students who are younger in the audience, I'm sure you'll see something similar again in your lifetimes. Those of us a little longer in the tooth, maybe not. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it was a community effort, and I just wanted to acknowledge that and appreciate everybody who responded well to that. Second recognition, we want to do a recognition of Parker Maloney, if Parker is here. Hi, Parker. Come on up. Well, just take a seat for a second, Parker. Yeah, take a seat. Yeah, right. So Parker received the distinguished recognition, which is the highest rating in his end-of-the-year assessment in Project Lead the Way, computer science courses. This is an outstanding accomplishment for a couple of reasons. Number one, Parker has and continues to impress with his creative and innovative problem solving in computer science. To do this well, to earn that highest score on this exam is really challenging. And Parker, as a younger student, did an outstanding job and was super successful. The course is actually designed to be a full-year course. But just the way we break down, we actually do it in a semester. So we cover all the material in a semester, which is even more impressive that we did a full year course in a semester, and then he earned this distinguished award for his score. And then if he continues to take Project Lead the Way courses, the score on this exam, plus future courses that he took, would make him eligible possibly for college scholarships or other future special recognitions. So this was one of the highest scores you can receive on the exam. And we wanted to take just a couple minutes tonight and recognize Parker for his hard work and his dedication in Project Lead the Way. So Parker, congratulations.
Sure.
Should say Parker knows best.
Sorry, right? Okay, you ready?
All right, congratulations, Parker. You're good? Congratulations, Parker. Nice job.
Do we have, is someone from the EAPC?
Give me a second. Let's see if anybody came into the meeting since we...
We have 16. Let's see.
I do not see Tom Pinto.
Nope.
So I do not see a representative from the EAPC in the meeting.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anybody from EAPC here who'd like to speak. I don't see anybody.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but okay, I wasn't sure if someone came in. So we shall move on and welcome comments from the elementary school ambassadors.
So we're glad to have Charlotte Swang, Will Cagle, and Marcus Perry here with us. So come on up. Give me a second to pull up the presentation. One second. Just hold on, I'm almost there. All right, ready.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Will.
I'm Marcus.
I'm Charlotte.
We are student ambassadors from Carver Elementary School, and we would want to share some of the great activities happening at our school.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm not moving forward. I don't know why. That's unusual. So we don't have any movement right now. So we'll try again. We'll pull the presentation up. See if we do a better job. There we go. All right, here we go. Sorry, guys.
We had our 100th day of school in February.
Yay.
We did a math mystery packet that had to do with 100.
When we were little, we would celebrate and make hats to wear.
Kids did activities in their classes with math and writing that had to do with 100 with fun games.
The Thursday before February vacation, the PTO had a Valentine's Day social, and the third graders had their recorder concert in the gym.
Hey, Marcus and Charlotte, do you remember playing the recorder?
Yeah, I do. I don't remember playing hot cross buns.
I think I got all the belts on the recorder, but I do remember the recorder concert.
Me and Marcus are both in band now, but back when we were kids, we rocked the recorder, kind of.
Still are a kid.
The day before February vacation, we had an all-school assembly.
It ended with a cup stacking competition. Oh,
It ended with a cup stacking competition with teachers versus students, and I felt like my ears were going to pop. Everybody was cheering.
we had champions of change, including kids in all grades that helped improve our school community and demonstrated kindness.
Kids shared their persuasive speeches and writing. A couple kids shared why there would be vending machines in every classroom.
Fourth graders sang a prime number song.
I feel like all the students enjoyed the assembly. The student ambassadors ran the assembly, and we welcomed everybody.
We also announced the winners of the door decorating contest. My class won it for 5th grade. Yippee!
We had Alice lessons on Wednesday last week.
They demonstrated how to act if there was a lockdown and what to do if there was an intruder in the school. The whole point of the lesson was not to scare students and was not to be scared and be prepared.
They discussed the ABCs of Alice, including
Alert, barricade, communicate, distract, and evacuate.
kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd graders were read the book I'm Not Scared, I'm Prepared.
The book explains Alice with the sheep, shepherd, and the wolf, where the teacher is the shepherd, the students are the sheep, and the intruder is the wolf.
It's meant to prepare students with what to do in an emergency. Pi Day is always March 14th, but that's sadly a Saturday.
That's why we're going to celebrate this Friday, March 13th.
Kids will wear polka dots to celebrate Pi Day.
I'd rather be eating pie, but instead of that, I'll just be celebrating it wearing circles.
The Wizard of Oz will be taking place next week on March 19th and 20th. I'm on the stage crew.
I'm the doorman to Oz and the lead munchkin. We have been having practices, and it helps with social anxiety because you're singing, dancing, and acting.
I'm a munchkin. I'm having a good time and I can't wait for the show.
As stage crew, you have to be careful because if you make a mistake, the audience could accidentally see people setting the scene.
That's a hard rule to have. It's going to be a great show.
100%.
Have a great evening, and remember, above all, be kind.
Thank you, Charlotte, Will, and Marcus. School committee, if you have any thoughts?
Thank you so much for joining us. Gosh, I think we should have pie at our next meeting. I think that's a really good idea.
And I think the whole community should go out and see The Wizard of Oz.
Indeed. Thank you so much for being here. We always love hearing from our elementary school ambassadors and all of our students.
I do think it would make sense, maybe, I know, is maybe adding on, giving the student representative, Joe Clardy, an opportunity to talk a little bit about our first student advisory council meeting.
Absolutely.
So, Joe, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about our first meeting?
Sure. We held our first meeting on March 6th, on Friday of last week. We primarily discussed, or first we introduced ourselves to each other, because first time we'd all been in the same room. And then we discussed things we would want changed about the school, improvements, and things we enjoyed about the school, and just overall appreciated what the teachers have done, and how hard you are all working to improve our school lives.
All right, thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Okay, so that will take us to the approval of minutes for the open session minutes from February 9th, 2026.
I move that we approve the open session minutes from February 9th, 2026.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to communication.
So we do have a couple of communications this evening. The first one is I want to talk a little bit about the middle school brochure. So I'm just trying to get it up for a second for those people at home. See how I do? There we go. We've really been focused on trying to market the Carver Public Schools and the great things that are happening here. We've had a little bit of a focus on, particularly our Pathways programs, and we've been looking at what's been happening in Pathways. In the last couple of years, we've sent out a Pathways brochure. And I do think that sometimes we miss celebrating some of the great things that are happening in the middle school. We want to share with the community that, like all of our levels, elementary school, middle school, high school, that there are awesome opportunities at Carver Middle School. So we're going to be saying this, we put this brochure together as a marketing technique, and it's going to be going out next week to families in grades 4 through 7 to talk a little bit about the opportunities that students have at the middle school level. So we think we've been a little bit remiss by focusing maybe a little bit too much on some of the stuff that's happening at the high school, especially in terms of pathways. And we want to know that families coming from the elementary school, as they make that transition, that there's great opportunities for our students at the middle school level. And so this is one marketing technique that we're using. So just wanted to share that brochure with the committee.
This is excellent. Thank you very much.
Love it.
So obviously, this was put together by the middle school administration, Gina, John, some teachers. So we got a lot of feedback, department chairs. So we had a lot of people weighing in on the things that we want to highlight that are happening at our middle school level. And families will be seeing this in the next week or so.
Yeah, a lot of great things. Thank you. Thank you to everyone that was involved. Love, love, love.
And our second communication is just the Reed's quarterly report. The highlight there is that they did open their new Deaf and Hard of Hearing building on January 5th. That's something that we've been talking about. As a member of the board at Reed's, I served on the building committee, so I was part of that project. We actually had a groundbreaking last Wednesday, March 4th. And they've really done an outstanding job turning that facility into a school for deaf and hard of hearing students from all over southeast Massachusetts. So obviously the Reed's Collaborative supports students from all over Mass. And they already had an alliance with Norton, so the facility being located in Norton allows them to keep some of that connection that they have with the Norton Public Schools in terms of students, deaf and hard of hearing students participating in extracurricular activities, being involved in a full school setting, while also getting the special needs that they have met appropriately. So we're really excited that that building has opened up. and it's had its grand opening, and it's just a great facility for students who are deaf and hard of hearing. That's my highlight for communications.
Thank you very much for that update. Glad to hear that the new building is up and running. Okay, so that brings us to reports from the superintendent and personnel updates.
So we do have some personnel movements since our last meeting. We have a new hire, Kevin Altig, third shift custodian at the elementary school. Sarah Corbin is a long-term substitute teacher in special education at the middle high school. Rachel Staples as a long-term substitute speech-language therapist assistant at the elementary school. She actually started today. Today was her first day. And Dana Knapp as our assistant JV baseball coach at the middle high school. Since we last met, we also received the retirement of Dave McKeechan, teacher grade 4 at the elementary school. That retirement is effective at the end of this school year.
Thank you very much for the updates. That takes us to an act relative to teacher preparation and student literacy.
Yeah, so we'd like to welcome Ruby Maestas, elementary principal, Kate Moore, reading coach at the elementary school, and John, who are going to take us through some pending legislation in regards to K-3 literacy at the state level. So they're going to tell you, there's an update on where the legislation stands and how it's going to impact the Carver public schools. Just give me a second to pull up your presentation. And John, will see if you're able to drive it.
Long distance.
This is just so people at home can see it. Let me know if you're able to drive it. No,
Yeah, they.
that's me, but I don't know if you're able to drive it.
How about that?
Oh, yeah, okay.
All right.
There we
So,
go.
thank you for letting me meet the school committee. Anytime we're watching any sort of events that would affect the district, we want to make sure the school committee and our parent community knows. And in this case, this is an update on early literacy legislation that's currently pending at the State House. During the fall and then in January, each of the houses, or the chambers of the State House passed a bill called an act relative to teacher preparation and student literacy. The aim really is to reform reading education across the state by mandating evidence-based, phonetic-centered curriculum for K-3 students at early literacy. It's a cornerstone of the governor's administration and her focus on education.
All right, I'm next. So good evening, everyone. I just wanted to, we're all going to take turns with some of these slides, but I felt awkward without saying good evening first. So anyway.
Welcome, we're glad you're here.
At Carver Elementary School, we've been implementing the newly revised units of study since 2022. Prior to that, we were implementing another curriculum, but sometimes what happens is curriculums no longer fit our needs. And so we had a teacher group of educators working with our curriculum director at the time, just taking through the steps of looking at various curriculum. So units of study became the curriculum that we have been working to implement with Fidelity. And DESC does not currently endorse the units of study reading curriculum as high quality. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about that tonight.
So just as far as where we're going to go, we'll talk about the legislative process a little bit, talk about the bills, like what might this look like, and then really the bottom line, what does it mean for Carver, and then what are the next steps that we're taking. So as far as the process, like I said, both the Senate and House have passed versions of this bill. They're not identical, but there's an extreme amount of similarity, which we'll talk about. Right now, the bills have moved towards reconciliation, and the committees can begin working on hammering out something that both houses will pass. That would probably be later this spring, and then the governor would sign it. You know, as far as is there any drama here, might it not pass? It passed the House and the Senate unanimously. So there's full support by the legislature, and the governor's already said this is something she was very, very committed to. So that's sort of where we are. It's not a law yet, and we don't know what it's going to look like yet. But like I say, they're in reconciliation right now. So Kate is going to sort of take us through, well, what are the big pieces of it, and how does it pertain to what we do in practices at Carver Elementary?
Sure. So one of the most significant pieces of the bill is a mandate to have evidence-based curriculum. And what that really entails is that the curriculum includes the 5 pillars of early reading development. So those 5 pillars are comprehension, vocabulary, fluency, phonics, and phonemic awareness. And Units of Study does teach all of those components through whole group, mini lessons, read alouds, small group instruction, one-to-one conferencing with students. And I just wanted to note that we do have a separate phonics program that's Units of Study Phonics. So that is a separate 30-minute block outside of our core reading instruction. It aligns with the reading instruction, but it's a separate 5-day-a-week phonics program that follows a specific scope and sequence. So we are currently doing it. And then the other thing that's really important with the bill is the early literacy intervention model, and it requires that schools have an early literacy intervention model. At Carver Elementary, we've always had a really strong intervention model. So we, in 2020, fall of 2020, adopted a screener, NWA Fluency and DIBBLES, and so that is our universal screener that we use. That's how we identify students for intervention and then provide them targeted support. We progress monitor them through those screeners as well so that students can become proficient readers.
So with the piece that Kate was just talking about, those 5 steps, you know, where we have a process where we notify parents when students do not meet at grade level standards. So what it says here is when students are identified as being significantly below, and we use the tools that Kate was just talking about, the DIBBLE screener and the NWA screener, we use those tools to help us identify where students are at. And then we notify parents if their students fall in this category. And there is a intensive plan that's put in place, which is what you heard Kate mention, and we've talked about at previous school committee meetings. It's our intervention model. And we have reading interventionists who are specialized to help to support the kids who fall in this category. So again, this is what we're currently doing and have been doing way prior to this act that's been proposed.
Yeah. So a lot of the bill isn't new, and it just lays out a lot of the practices that happen at Carver Elementary. One unique part of both drafts of this bill is the prohibition of specific teaching strategies, and they call out specifically MSV or 3Qing. It's a practice that some curriculum, including Units of Study, it used 10 or 15 years ago, but in the current versions, it's not talked about. Kate, as a literacy coach, will sort of dive into what MSV is, 3Qing, a little bit more, so you have a better sense of how the bill affects us.
Sure. So I wanted to give a concrete example of the 3Qing system that is not used in Units of Study. As John mentioned, it previously had been used in a multitude of programs and assessments, but it's no longer best practice. But the concrete example that I came up with was that if we know the story Goldilocks and the Three Bears, on a page it might say Goldilocks saw the porridge, but if a student was using the 3Qing system, they might say Goldilocks saw the pillow, because there might be a picture of a pillow in a picture in the story. So that would be cueing them or prompting them to use meaning of a picture. Again, we know that's not best practice anymore. Or they might be thinking for structure Goldilocks saw a pillow, that makes sense in the structure of a sentence, or pillow starts like porridge, so they're just kind of guessing at words, and we know that that is not research-based. So we really want kids to break words apart, use their phonics skills, and we do that through units of study phonics, our phonics program.
Yeah. So as Kate mentioned, really, it's guessing, and it's not good practice, and really it's not aligned with what we know about instruction, so it doesn't occur. But it's just, I think, important to point out, because sometimes it gets trotted out as this is what curriculum that doesn't pass muster with DESE, they must be using this, but this is an abandoned practice. So, and it doesn't happen in our classrooms. The next piece is around waiver. I think a lot of us, as we started reading the bills, were wondering, well, what does this mean for districts that don't have approved curricula? They did include a waiver process. They haven't spelled out exactly what the bar would be, but in talking to folks that are involved in this process, they're looking at an extremely high bar, something that it's not going to be practical, and probably not many districts would be successful in using the waiver. I think for them to enact this, make it law, say that everyone has to change, but then create this really easy to access waiver would dilute the law. So they're not. It's going to be there is a waiver, but it's probably not practical or accessible to us.
So this next slide just talks about some other elements of the early literacy bill. We just want to talk a little bit about teacher preparation in terms of literacy. So the colleges and universities are really and have been working to align themselves with teaching students that are in the educational field how to teach children how to read. So what we're saying here is, there's the responsibility doesn't just lie at the elementary schools to support the teachers with this training. It's a multitude of supports that have to go into place to help teachers that are learning how to that are going into education. So that's just a little bit there. And then we also wanted to talk about the responsibilities of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So their part in this is, through this bill, they would be responsible for maintaining the curate list. And the curate list is a list of curriculum for schools that is considered highly qualified curriculum. So DESE would be responsible for maintaining that list, and then districts would select from that list when they were looking at curriculum. And then the other piece for the DESE is to help support with the professional development piece. So this would then, mandate DESE to help districts put professional development in place. Because while I just talked about teacher-educator programs, teaching new teachers, what about the teachers that maybe, aren't as new? So that's the DESE responsibility. And then the next one is just a bit about the bottom line. So the current status here is, what we're trying to tell you is the curriculum that we are currently using with the units of study, it satisfied most of these components that we talked about already. It satisfies most of them. Really, the only one is it's not on the curate list. Could it be on the curate list next year? Possibly. But then the other piece that we wanted to tell you in the next slide is there's about half of the Commonwealth, of the elementary schools in the Commonwealth, close to half, are in the same boat. They're using whatever curriculum they're using that isn't on the curate list as well. And so that, back to that previous slide, there was the section about the future contingency state review needed, and that's just really, the legislation, basically what that is saying, early literacy legislation still may require reconsideration of our curriculum, and yeah, we're prepared to do that.
So next steps. So right now, like I said, the legislation is in a reconciliation phase. We don't know the final version. For instance, as Ruby mentioned, professional development. The Senate bill, like in the draft, specified setting up an account with $25 million committed to state PD. The House bill didn't say anything about it. So there are a lot of details that they have to work on. So, what can we do right now is really watchful waiting and making sure we know as much as we can about where it's going and what it might be. Legislative communication, we've reached out to both the state senator and the state representative for this area, both for their help, but also to make sure we convey our needs. Where almost half of the districts in the state are in the same boat. We want to make sure that as they pass legislation, that the implementation is done fairly, and maybe this, like a curriculum like ours, it's very commonly taught, maybe they could go through a period of a phase of review and reconsideration before districts like ours are simply forced to switch up and start over again. And then lastly, in the meantime, you always hope for the best but plan for the worst. Mm-hmm. So we're beginning a phase of curriculum exploration really later in the spring. Some PD opportunities we're taking advantage of over the summer with teachers administration, and then next year that'll be a focus. One of the bills talks about a timeline for implementation, and that's 27-28. The other draft doesn't talk about it at all. So we're not even sure, is this next year, a year after, or some point in the future. So that's what we have for next steps.
And so I do think that's a key point to highlight, is that we're not really sure of the timeline. Obviously the legislation hasn't passed yet, but the writing on the wall says some version of this legislation is going to pass. So the odds of that happening are probably pretty slim for it not to happen. So there's a good chance this is going to happen. But then once it happens, then it comes to that question of what's the timeline for implementation? Are they going to do a review and add new programs to curate? So there's a lot more information to come. But our goal tonight was really just to give the school committee and the community a heads up that this is most likely coming. So we'll certainly have future presentations on this over the coming months and into next year.
Do you have any questions? What questions do you have?
I have a question. So if we have to decide on another curriculum, who's going to be on the board to choose the curriculum? Do we even know that yet?
The teachers for sure have to be a part of it. It's a process of, folks that are, in K through 5 educators, Kate as the literacy coach, John as curriculum. People always want to be involved with that and weigh in and learn more. And so there's plenty of folks at the elementary school that would want to be involved.
We'll set up a curriculum committee that includes all of those folks.
Yeah.
We'll look at the various options that exist for us, because there's going to be a few that on curate. So we'll select some of those, start doing some investigation. Depending on the timeline is going to become a key. If the timeline allows, we'll probably pilot a program or two. Hopefully we'll have the opportunity to do that. And then just give constant feedback to the school committee about that.
And we certainly would want to have input from all stakeholders, as we make this choice. I think the last choice was a wise one. I think when the study was adopted, districts around the state were adopting it at the same time, in droves. So it's just the times have changed. And that's the one thing you can count on, is that things will continue to change.
Absolutely. Thank you for making us aware of this. I made note to make sure that we discuss this when we visit with our legislators at Day on the Hill, and see if they can find out, see if they can have any additional information they can share. But it's certainly something that we can, stay connected to. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for the information.
Ruby, John, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the athletics update, winter and spring seasons.
Yeah, so we're excited about that because we had an outstanding winter season. So
Indeed.
Kelsey's going to share some of those great highlights with us in terms of some of the great things that happened in spring. Give me 1 second, Kelsey, let me get the slideshow up.
Welcome, AD.
Thank you. Thanks for having
Oh,
me.
sorry,
Appreciate having
Kelsey,
you
1
here.
second. I gotta make sure the people at home can see
Yep.
it. All right, ready?
Good. So first, I wanted to recognize some of our fall athletes. The Patriot Ledger All-Scholastics didn't come out until the middle of January. So just starting with recognizing those athletes that got recognized for Patriot Ledger All-Scholastic. For volleyball, Maeve Zakarewski was first team, Riley Jenkins second team. Girls cross country, Hazel Butterworth was first team, and then boys cross country, Luke Maloney and Nathaniel Tyler were honorable mentions. So great accomplishment for them to first recognize, and now let's transition into winter. So we had an incredible season this past winter, a lot of successes as teams and individually. To start, we have our team records. Boys basketball finished 12-7, girls basketball 7-12. Boys ice hockey 14-5-1, girls ice hockey 7-13-1, wrestling 4-2, girls track and field 4-0, and boys track and field 3-1. Within the South Shore League, we had 3 major accomplishments. Our boys co-op ice hockey team was South Shore League champions. Our girls track and field team were South Shore League champions, and Hazel Butterworth was girls track and field player of the year. Also within the league, we have all-stars that got recognized. So for boys basketball, we have Nate Helms and Matt Lennox. For girls basketball, Josie Helms. Boys ice hockey, Levon Mulready. Wrestling, Colson Tully, Mikey Brennan, and Aaron Reed. Girls indoor track and field, Hazel Butterworth, Emma Wall, Alyssa Verdon, Alexa Ryan, Grace Keneally, and Sophia Tibbetts. And boys indoor track and field, Nolan Keneally, Jake Holden, Ryan Wall, Ryan LaBelle, Hunter Dalton, and David Savastano. Individual accomplishments, there's a lot, so bear with me, but it's exciting. Tori Tully for wrestling placed 3rd at the D3 state meet for the 132-pound weight class. Colson Tully for wrestling, D3 state champion for the 132 weight class. He placed 4th in the all-state meet, and he placed 5th this past weekend at New England's in Rhode Island, so congratulations to him. Sarah Baptiste and Mikey Brennan placed 4th at the D3 state meet. Mikey placed 8th at the all-state meet, and he also got his 100th wrestling win this season.
Awesome.
Nolan Keneally placed 2nd in high jump for track at the D5 state meet. Carly Peterson placed 5th in high jump at the D5 state meet and placed 8th at the meet of champions. Emma Wall came in 1st in high jump at the D5 state meet, placed 3rd in the meet of champions, and placed 11th in New England's. And Hazel Butterworth placed 3rd in the 1 mile and 5th in the 2 mile at the D5 state meet, placed 7th in the mile at the meet of champions, placed 10th at New England's, and is competing in nationals at the end of this week at the New Balance Arena.
Great.
That's great.
Good for them.
They've been on fire.
I have
We had some school records that were broken this winter as well. So Hazel for the 600 meter, 1 mile, and 2 mile. For Jake Holden, the 600 meter and the 2 mile. Emma Wall for the high jump. Carly Peterson for the long jump. Ryan Wall broke his record from last year in the shot put. Ryan LaBelle, Hunter Dalton, Nolan Keneally, and Cash Liddell set the record for the 4x50 shuttle hurdle relay. Emma Wall, Grace Keneally, Alyssa Verdon, and Hazel Butterworth for the 1600 meter sprint medley relay. And Colson Tully is the first to get 200 wins in the school and set the new record with 211 wins.
That's a crazy number of records.
Yeah, crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Team accomplishments, as I mentioned, they had great successes. Our girls and boys basketball teams and our girls and boys ice hockey team all made it to the round of 32 in the MIA state tournament. Moving on to spring, so we'll be offering girls tennis, boys tennis, softball, baseball, and outdoor track and field for boys and girls. First day of tryouts is next Monday, March 16th. Tomorrow night we have our Meet the Coaches night, followed by a college athletics panel at 6:30, where we have 5 college coaches coming in for a Q&A with families and student athletes or students from all grades in the auditorium. And then spring schedules, per usual, can be found on arbiterlive.com.
Excellent.
Thank you, Kelsey. That was an outstanding winter season for all of our student athletes.
Fantastic.
Congratulations
Wow.
to all of our teams
Impressive.
and all of our students who set individual records and school records.
Yes.
Truly impressive.
Yeah, it's been an amazing season. Congratulations.
Sure was.
Thank you for coming to highlight
Yeah.
all of their success. Now come on, spring, right? Let's need some smells.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you so very much. Okay, so that brings us to alumni outreach.
Again, just give me a second to share. So we've been interested, or we're interested in building an alumni network. Something we've talked about over the last couple of years, and we're finally making some steps forward in progress for that. We really want to celebrate the great things that our Carver High School graduates are doing. We also want to try to tap into this network to build internship connections, and for alumni to build connections and share some of their experiences with our current students. We're also starting, in terms of that marketing campaign, I Am a Crusader campaign, and asking alumni to participate in that. The survey has been shared on social media. As of today, you can see here, actually we have 193 responses. The goal tonight is to go through the responses, but just to show you the questions. But there are several people in here who said, I would definitely be interested in meeting with a group of high school students, talking about my field, where I'm working, share with students who have an interest in that area to try to give them some mentorship on how to follow my path. And we've also had a lot of alumni who've expressed interest in working someplace locally, that the business they're working in might be a place that would make sense and be a good connection for our internships. So we're hoping that, so already from the responses to the survey, we're seeing that we're going to have the opportunity to tap into some of those resources. And it's a resource, it's a tremendous resource that's in this community. As you know, there's a lot of alumni who, there's alumni sitting in this room. There's a lot of alumni who still live and work in Carver, or live and work in the area, and certainly can be supportive of our school district. And I think it's something that we've missed in terms of we haven't been tapping into that. So this is just the beginning of that process. So I'll show you what the survey questions were. Obviously, please include your current first and last name. If it's different from when you graduated, what year did you graduate? And we have response all the way back to the early 90s to students who just graduated a couple of years ago. An email address if they want to share that, the phone number, where are you currently living? And we have alumni in this responses who are living all over the United States. What was your level of education attainment after high school? Have you served in the military? What is your current occupation? Do you have any hobbies or interests you think would be interesting to our students that you could share about? What information do you want us to share with you? So the part of this is to try to create an alumni network, and we'd love to foster, have some people here step up and form an alumni committee that would kind of take the leadership of this. I think that would be a really positive thing for the school district. So we just thought, hey, here, what types of things would you like to learn about that we should maybe doing a better job of keeping you informed in? There's a checklist here that you can read. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. And then just would you consider participating in I Am a Crusader social campaign, in terms of saying, these celebrating the great things that, students who come from Carver go off and do great things, and have for 30 years. And we just want to celebrate that. Because I also think that's inspirational to our students who are here, to hear the great things that alumni from 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years ago are doing. And having them think, hey, I'm where I am right now, but I want to get there. I want to get to one of those places. So we're excited about this. We're happy with the response we've received so far. So far it's been a social media campaign. And we'll be starting to go to guidance and looking at some of this data, starting to tap into those people who are saying, hey, I'd be interested in posting an internship, or my business might be interested in hosting an internship. Or this is the field I work in and I'd love to talk to some students about it. Yeah. So start making that connection of, okay, it makes sense for this person to talk to students in this class. or maybe into guidance or some individual connections. So we're excited about this. It's something that I've wanted to do for the last couple of years, and this is a start. It's a beginning point. But wanted to make the committee and the community aware that we were doing this.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing where it goes to. It's really wonderful to have those connections and to start building upon it. I know that just at the couple of games that I've been to recently, I've seen a lot of alumni.
Yeah.
A lot of recent graduates already asking in, days gone by. But this is really great. Thank you for putting it together.
All right, thank you.
Is it still open currently?
It's still, yeah, so we'll still put it out there, and if you,
I'll share
we'll
it.
share it again on social
I'm
media.
a
We encourage people to
37-year
share.
alumni.
Yeah, we
37
encourage you to
years,
share.
yes.
We encourage you to share on social media.
I've definitely seen alumni share it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I know I have, and a few of us, yeah,
So we
quite a few of us.
want to get it out. Yeah, we have 193 responses. I'd love to have 1,000 responses.
All right.
Are you going to do some printouts and survey mailouts or?
No.
No, so we were going to do it, right now we were doing it all social media.
Yeah.
Ones. We weren't going to do a print version of it.
Probably the best way to do it anyway. Cool. Exciting.
Any other questions on the alumni outreach?
No.
Very exciting stuff. Okay, so that takes us to the NWEA CES Carver Elementary School mid-year review with John.
So John's back on. John's going to take us through the NWA data at the elementary school and how we're using that data for intervention.
Yep. And
Same thing with John. Just give me a second to share it out.
yeah, the data was taken actually. It's like the winter mid-year, so
Okay.
with the snowstorm and vacation, we're a little delayed. In doing this, in updating the community and the school committee, I took the liberty of using a metaphor that their work this year is like hiking up a mountain. So I'll stick to that metaphor throughout.
Just in case so you don't lose it.
Yeah, so what do they use for a compass? What helps both the teachers and parents is NWA MAP, or Measures of Academic Assessments, which is that mid-year benchmark. It really helps teachers, administrators, counselors understand what students know, what skills they're really doing a nice job developing, and then maybe where do they need a little bit of extra work and a little focus for growth. It's given 3 times a year to grades 2 through 5. You're probably familiar with it. But also in the process, we also look and listen to our teachers, their observations, any parent concerns. But in this case, we're going to stick to the MAP data. So the fall benchmark, where do we begin? Once again, using the hiking up the mountain, that when the kids took it, grades 2 through 5, if you created an average for their achievement and compared it to all the other MAP students nationally, we were in the 60th percentile. We weren't dead in the center. We were actually a little bit further ahead than the average student that uses MAP across the nation, grades 2 through 5. So this is sort of where we start out after working through the first part of the year and the winter benchmark was given. What we noticed is that our reading achievement now moved up to the 65th percentile from the 60th, and our math achievement moved up to the 70th percentile. So in that same group of kids, our students are not only making progress, they're making more and faster progress than a lot of their peers nationally. So it was really encouraging, and we're still hiking up the mountain. We're not done. We didn't get to the mid-year and go, okay, that's it. But we made really good progress the first half of the year. Another way to look at it is just by like a scatter plot. And if you notice, like for reading, basically all the scatters slide to the right. Same thing for math, like everything slides to the right towards higher achievement and more growth. So it's really encouraging. And it doesn't happen on its own. Kids have been working really hard, and the teachers are doing a fantastic job. Within that range, though, you're going to have some kids who are making tremendous growth, and some kids making average growth, and then some kids who are maybe, pulling up the rear. And at the elementary school, they don't leave anyone behind. And using their intervention process, we provide students a little extra help that are identified, usually during wind block. And it might happen in the classroom. And the picture on the left is a 4th grade classroom, in which case the teacher is meeting with a group of students that were identified as maybe needing a little bit of extra help. While this is occurring in the classroom, there might be small groups of students working or students working individually. But one form of intervention is that wind block support with the teacher. Sometimes kids need a little bit more help, and they might leave to work with either a math interventionist or a reading specialist. And the picture on the right is one of the two reading specialists working with a group of kids, especially where it's reading. They really work on phonics, like the important foundation to all the reading comprehension progress that they're going to make throughout their career. So we really make sure those pieces are reinforced, and once again, it comes out through data analysis and collaboration between the reading specialist, Kate, who was here earlier, Jen Kelly, the math interventionist, and then the teams of teachers who look really carefully at that data. So it's a great process. As we work on intervention, I pulled out some data where it was kind of neat, where when we look at growth, not just achievement, but how much progress is made from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. And I was kind of curious about, well, how much of a difference is intervention making with that small group of strugglers? And what we see is that when it comes to growth, all kids in reading and math make between 61 and 70. They're at the 61st or 70th percentile. Between the beginning of the year and the middle of the year, the kids receiving intervention made even more growth. Their achievement is probably lower, but they're catching up to their peers. So it's a system that's built on that data, but it's really making a difference for helping all kids make their progress up the mountain. Okay? That said, the positive signs. We can't do it alone, though. So
God bless you.
just remind parents that what can they do to help kids on this journey. The first is just and I'm really sticking hard to the metaphor, rock climbing. But refuel their body. Make sure kids have solid routines. They're getting to bed. They're putting the remote down if they're gamers, but they are getting to bed. They're eating. They have the opportunity to go out after school, move around, walk the dog, play in the yard, play a sport or an activity. But it's so important for kids over the course of the year to have those opportunities to keep refueling themselves. It's important to reset the environment, just like hikers. At the end of the day of hiking, you do need to stop and take a deep breath, and it's so important to set a really good, regular, consistent routine with kids each night for winding down, getting to bed. I'm a big proponent for don't bring phones into the bedroom, but that's just me. And then also in the morning, too. During the snowstorm or afterwards, when the bus routes changed, we all helped out at the elementary school unloading kids in the morning because we had a lot of drop-offs. And there's nothing better than seeing kids hopping out first thing in the morning, literally bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ear-to-ear grin. And those are kids that have really good, healthy morning routines. You just want to keep that going so that they can make as much growth as they can during the year. No, though, sometimes it's tough, and sometimes we get tired, or sometimes it's really steep and rocky, but as parents, we just want to keep encouraging our kids. It's worth it, you can do it, it's worthwhile, and nothing worthwhile is ever achieved without hard work. So, we're happy to keep working with parents, we'll keep doing what we're doing, and look forward to coming back at the end of the year and showing us at the top of the mountain. So, questions?
Excellent.
Yeah.
And the only thing I would add on is obviously we're excited that we had students make a lot of growth in grades 2 through 5 and the map data showing that. It also belies the interventions that we're doing at the elementary school. So thank you to our teachers and the administration for kind of leading that intervention model. And then I know we focus on the elementary school this evening. The goal is that April will come back and look at some of the data from the middle school.
Okay, great.
So that will be on the April media agenda.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. So I have to ask, are you a hiker?
I'm sorry?
Are you a hiker?
I am, yeah. But none of those pictures were me. That was all either AI or open source.
Yeah.
I'm not going. It would be very discouraging or upsetting to see pictures of me hiking. I wouldn't be bounding up. I'd be dragging and exhausted, crying. So I was trying to something a little bit more inspirational.
Yeah. No, that's great. I had to ask. Because there are so many analogies there. It's great. Thank you very much for the data.
Sure. My pleasure.
shout out to all of our teachers for their hard work and our
Absolutely.
specialists and the kids for keeping grinding. Okay, so that brings us to the public hearing of the FY27 budget. To Ron. Thank you in advance.
Loading.
Yep.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
So what you have this evening is an update to your budget. I know this has been, an ongoing process. The budget is always iterative. We've been doing this for a few months now. So some of what you're going to see tonight is the same that you've seen over the past several presentations. Your presentation summary is identical, right? We'll start with our budget priorities, talk a little bit at first about sort of how budgets are organized and through the state accounting system. Then we'll dive into expenses, how that's all organized, and then we'll take a look at the revenue that ultimately pays for all of those expenses, all of those services. We'll end it with an executive summary and some next steps. One thing to note with this presentation, we're presenting a balanced budget across the board. It's a little bit different than what you saw in your previous model, though. We're going to start by showing you just a straight level service budget. And then because there's been moving pieces this year in particular, we'll then talk about some of the additional programming and staffing added in, as well as some of the attrition through just retirements, right, to do the balancing. Yeah. So as we talked about, several times over the past few months, we've got really 3 core priorities. The first, continue to maintain services for our kiddos pre-K to 12. Happy to report that this budget does just that. It's level services across the board with addition of some additional services we'll talk about at the end. Also focuses on the educational blueprint, which the committee is very familiar with. And lastly, certainly that investment and continued investment in growing and developing the pathways at the middle high school. So we'll start with the operating budget at a high level. What you see here is just the way that the state requires us to sort of structure the funding for schools. On the right-hand side are the categories that the state says we've got to organize the funding in. Again, similar to how you've seen it before, with the exception of that note below, we'll show just the level services, no new positions added, also no reductions either, right? So the first category the state sets for us is the 1,000 series. It's district-wide. Really no changes from the last few times. We've talked a lot about this. The big item this year that's different is this increase in tech infrastructure. We're shifting to this government-linked management detection response system. Essentially, it is more expensive than we've typically used, but it's a much more robust system, both in terms of detecting attacks on your system and your infrastructure, as well as responding to attacks in the event any of those attacks are successful, right? The 2000 series is the way that the state structures your instructional service funding. One of the new items here that was different from our previous conversation is just that we've had more information about potential retirements. We talked a little bit about this in our last meeting, but I just want to underscore it. Typically, when you have a retirement at the high end of your scale, your replacement's projected with some substantial savings. Not always, but that's typical. And so that allows you to have some savings in the 2000 series, which is really beneficial to help us balance that budget. Again, I want to underscore this 2000 series has your contracts for your educational staff in there. It doesn't reflect any new positions or any of the reductions, yeah? The 3000 series, the way the state set this up is primarily nursing as well as transportation. It's all those additional supporting programs and components to your schools. 2 things to keep in the back of your mind. The first is that we typically get some savings when we bring some of our contracted services in-house, and we're realizing that in FY27 as well. Later in the evening, we'll talk a little bit about a report that the IG's office has actually just released on transportation education, and Carver sort of leading some of those categories in terms of being efficient with that resource. So you'll see some sort of delta change there on your special education transportation, some savings coming in-house. It also reflects year 4, the athletics uniform replacement. That's been super successful. One unknown that we have a conservative estimate in for is the athletic trainer contract. It's still pending. We expect that to be squared away in the coming months. Okay. We talked a little bit about this last time. I want to underscore it with you again. The 4000 series reflects operations and maintenance. Usually this is where you see your lowest amount of growth. It's pretty perfunctory. It's keeping your buildings open and it's keeping the lights on. This past year, though, we've seen some real increases, like FY26, current year, seen some real increases in time and materials for all of our contracts and all of our services for sort of maintaining the buildings. That's not typical, but it shows a pretty substantial rise this year, so we're extrapolating that into next year as well. Two other things to just keep in the back of your mind. It obviously includes contractual services for custodial, technology staff, as well as some repairs for some of our systems. Something that I'm sure you're aware of is like your middle high school is getting older, and so there are just natural repairs that are required of a building of that age. Your elementary school, though, while we always talk about it as the new school, it's not new anymore, and some of those infrastructure are requiring our attention. Water system in particular at that building. Certainly a high-tech system, which not only can require some sort of like mechanical maintenance, but sometimes technical assistance as well. One other thing I will share with you about the 4000 series that is relatively new in the last couple of weeks that'll realize some savings in the early part of FY27 as well as FY28. I realize we're just doing 27, but gives you some like longitudinal thinking about it. So your electricity and your gas costs are both up this year. They're going to continue to grow. It doesn't take into account some of the instability that we see globally right now when we think about energy costs and energy cost projections over the long haul. But be that as it may, your costs are certainly increasing as well. One of the things that we're happy to report is that the Carver Schools is currently working on an agreement to do what's called an alternative on-bill credit for a reduction in some of your total electricity costs. Essentially how it works is when there's solar or alternative energy, but in this case solar that can come online in the Commonwealth, there are opportunities for municipal entities, your school department in this case, to participate with this AOBC through the entity that's getting the electricity, Eversource. That energy needs to be consumed in some way, and it's consumed at a discount when you're a municipality. So we're just finalizing that contract now. We expect that it's going to come on board really December, January, February of next year, so the first half of FY27. You should be realizing the better part of about 12% all in, which is pretty decent on a relatively large electricity bill. Nothing's finalized yet, so your figures in your budget are conservative, but I'd rather be conservative in 27, realize the actuals, and then really put the full savings out into 28. So it does save you some resources in the 4000 series in operations and maintenance, brings down that large increase to still 6.5%, which is substantial, but a little bit less.
And something new that we hadn't.
Yeah, we've never done that.
The last couple of weeks, and not in the previous presentations of the budget.
Right. Yeah. So hopefully we can continue with that mechanism. Oh, I should say, sort of name that out loud. We're working with our colleagues in Town Hall to finalize the contract. It would be a 20-year agreement with the solar company ultimately that's generating the electricity. So it would be that discount, that 12% discount on the credits for 2 decades for the school department.
And for the town as well?
No, the town does separate agreements. The short answer is no, the town does separate agreements. It would just be for your bills for the middle high school, elementary school.
That's excellent.
So more to come on that as that gets finalized, but we've reflected some of that in FY27. Again, conservative, that's sort of my nature in general, but I think it's a good start in the right direction for that. Your 5000 series is not super interesting. No changes from our last conversation about it. For the benefit of our students here, a little bit about the 5000 series. It covers like your benefits that are not health insurance, right? So health insurance we'll talk about later in the presentation, but this is your liability, your Medicare, right, IRS, those sorts of things, as well as like some of the costs for prior contracted insurance. So you have, when Carver and Plymouth were together as an entity, there are still employees that are now retired, obviously, but used to work in that organization, and a portion of their insurance costs are covered in your school department. That portion reduces each year just because they're older folks, right? This really is this is the story of your FY27 budget. Everything else is important, certainly, but this is your takeaway. Yep. Your 9000 series covers your out-of-district tuitions. It's not all of special education, but most of it is special education. It also includes things like your agricultural schools, kiddos who want to go to Aggie school can go to Aggie schools, and the community of Carver pays for that cost. Same is true with any vocational that's not Old Colony. So if a kiddo wants to take a vocational program, but Old Colony doesn't have that particular program, they can still go to a different vocational school, and again, the community covers that cost. All of that said, really the lion's share of your costs here are special education programs, programs required for kiddos who have like significant special education needs that otherwise can't be covered here in the community. They go to specialized schools to make sure they can get those needs covered, and there's a cost to that. I'm really happy to continue reporting that we're projecting a negative change on that 9,000 series. That's a home run from a financial perspective. It's certainly a benefit for your kiddos as well, in that they're generally moving toward, some of your students are moving toward less restrictive placements and placements here in your community with community members and community students. That also impacts your transportation costs, as we talked about earlier as well. And we're actually seeing those changes happen now in FY26. So you're able to realize some of those savings, obviously a smaller portion of it, in FY26. We'll talk about how that's important a little bit later too. So let's take a moment to drill down into that data. What you see on the right-hand side gives you two sets of data that are really important to think about when you think about special education tuitions and the cost of that, right? The first is that orange line that just shows the number of kiddos who require these out-of-district services. They have significant disabilities. Those disabilities can't be covered by some of the programs we have here, and they have to go somewhere else. Now, the kiddos' needs haven't changed. It's just that we've been able to start providing some of those services here in our community, which is a home run, I think a testament to the special education staff and the team in all of our schools. The second component there, though, is those blue bars that you see over time that just show the total cost, right? FY26 to 27. And that decline in cost almost never happens. Sometimes it can level out. But to see that decline, again, is atypical, and it's really been helpful from a financial perspective with the school department. Yeah. Hey, the next bit here is something to keep in the back of your mind as well. Again, this is more about the SPED program in general. So the first one we showed was just special education, out-of-district cost, the tuitions at 9,000 series. This is special education cost across all of it, right? So across the teachers, the pens and pencils that we use in special education, the specialized programming and the books and all the things, right, all together. In general, those costs still go up because it costs more for stuff and staffing. But because that 9,000 series, those tuitions, are such a large portion of education, not just in Carver, in the Commonwealth, by that going down, it starts to drive down your overall special education costs. So what you see there in the orange is like the percent change. It shows, yes, you're still getting an increase in percent change, but the speed at which it's increasing is slowing way down. Yeah. And the blue is just the change in actual dollars. So again, it's going up, but the speed at which it's going up over the past couple of years is substantially slowing. And that's really a home run when you think about your budget in a snapshot. Yeah. So here's the picture of your budget, FY26 to 27. You can see that percent change from each of those, state required categories. Again, I do think your takeaway here is really that 9,000 series, the tuitions at negative percentage. All in, about 28.8 million, about 3.8% change from one year to the next. What's important to think about when you look at that figure, though, is that it doesn't include any of the offsets in our costs, and it doesn't include any new positions or any positions that are sort of being changed due to attrition, due to retirement, ultimately, right? So that's the first snapshot, cost of operation. Here you just have like the 10,000-foot view of your budget. On the right, it's just the way that it's organized by DESI's accounting system. Don't see the figures popping up on the screen on the right.
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
They do pop up on mine.
It's on your screen.
I'll tell them to you, right? Hey, so that big orange part of the pie is your 2000 series. It represents 67% of your total budget. Going up the left, you see in gray, that's your 3,000, that's support, about 11%. Your 4,000 series is operations and maintenance at 7%, benefits in blue at just 2%, tuitions at 10%, and then that district-wide at about 3%. One thing to keep in the back of your mind is that green bit, that is tuitions. Before COVID, that number was at about 8% of your budget. So still 2% less in a massive budget, right? Mm-hmm. Down, though, from 11%. So we're going in the right direction, but we still haven't reached pre-COVID figures there. And I can't promise that we ever would. I think that's true sort of across the Commonwealth, but I think that's an important one to name. On the right-hand side, that's just a really big picture view. Just as a reminder, most of what we do is people, right? We are big people teaching little people when it's all said and done. 4/5 of our budget is the staffing, and about 1/5 is not. So we've talked a little bit about sort of how things are sort of aggregated to your cost. I want to change gears and spend a few minutes to talk a little bit about like, how the resources come in to cover all of those costs for your budget. Yeah. Again, for our students in the room here, it's important to keep in the back of your mind that like money comes in for your schools in sort of two different ways. The first is this state and local aid. If you are so inclined to pop by at town meeting, that's going to be the number you see on the warrant. That's the thing that everyone's going to talk about and sort of vote on at town meeting. But that's not your whole budget. While it's not a huge part of your budget, part two are the grants and offsets. They come in from the federal and state level. We sort of consolidate all of those budget offsets to help balance it when it's all said and done, because the amount of money coming from the state and local isn't enough to cover all of the costs to operate your schools, right? So let's start with just that, state and local aid. You've seen this one before as a committee, so I'll be brief with it. Your state and local aid is built and sort of governed by the policies of your select board. Local decision on that, ultimately. That first bucket in green is about $52.9 million, all said and done. That's your total revenue coming in for your community, taxes, pilots, those sorts of things. It backs out the pilot out of your local receipts, and then you get your total number. In pink, you have all of your fixed liabilities. So the cost for snow and ice, which we just saw recently, unemployment, health insurance, debts, those sorts of things, get backed out of that amount. You're left with a total available revenue to cover all the costs to operate your community, everything from making sure your kindergarten teachers have the paper they need to making sure your police officers have the bulletproof vest they need, and everything in between. Yeah? Our community has a split that they organize that with and say like, hey, 68.4% of that total money will go to your school department and the balance will go to general government. Why that's important is because in blue, that's the number that you would see on your town warrant meeting, right? So again, I know it's a little complicated, but I think it's healthy to just understand like how the sausage is made. When you get to your warrant, you typically just see the number in most communities. That's pretty typical, but that's how you get to that figure. It's all said and done. One item I want to take a few minutes and just dive into, and again, I know a bit redundant for folks who are very familiar with it or have seen it before, but I think it's instructive nonetheless, is to drive home a few points about Chapter 70, because Chapter 70 is the biggest part of how you get funding for your schools. It's not the only part, but it's important. Chapter 70 is part of state aid. It's not the only part of state aid that Carver gets, but it's the biggest part of state aid that Carver gets, and it's primarily driven by enrollment. What you see on the right-hand side is your enrollment by graduating class from about 2005 to present. Yeah, so it gives you about 20 years of data. In blue, you see the average enrollment by graduating class year after year. And you can see that enrollment has gone down. In orange, you can see the birth rates that are reported to the state as well. And so it makes sense. You have fewer kiddos born. You have fewer kiddos in the schools. Over time, you have reduced enrollment. Why that's important, though, is because the state sets the law about funding, state funding to schools, based on a per pupil amount. For every kiddo you have enrolled, you get a certain amount of money, aggregate it up, and they send the money over. If you've read anything about the Student Opportunity Act, that exacerbates the problem for Carver, but provides additional resources, again, all focused, though, on enrollment. I talked earlier when we talked about the expenses that like 4/5 of your budget's just staffing. And why that's important, though, is because this graphic here shows you in blue, that's student enrollment, again, year after year. This is by year versus graduating class, but the trend is similar. And then the number of teachers you have, sort of FTEs. And so you see that like widening of the delta there. At a certain point, that becomes challenging to continue to sustain. And that's really what we've been seeing this year as we looked at FY20. The last thing I'll show you, and again, I don't mean to hit the nail too hard here, but I just think it's instructive for us. This gives you a sense of the amount of funding you get through Chapter 70. That's the blue line, which is relatively flat over the past several years, versus the amount of funding that a local community has to provide to continue to support any school department, this happens to be Carver. And that delta keeps growing. If you've been reading the local news in, the South Shore just for the past month or two, there's dozens of communities who are looking at multi-million-dollar deficits. Some are structural deficits, some are a function of Chapter 70, some are a function of reduced growth, and everything in between. But all of that said, when you look at it purely from a lens of Chapter 70, state funding, what can Beacon Hill do? I'd be willing to venture that the large majority of those communities have a graphic that looks very similar to that. Two last things about Chapter 70, please. Go ahead.
I was just going to have you highlight that first.
I will, sorry. Two last things about Chapter 70, right? The governor's budget is in. Budget's not finalized, obviously. Typically, the Commonwealth has, for at least the past 2 decades that I've been in education, used the governor's budget as the floor. They've set a per pupil funding level at $75 per pupil. Why that's important to Carver is that's the hold harmless level. That means if your enrollment has not been increasing, you don't trigger the Student Opportunity Act and get additional funding. The state says, well, we don't want to reduce your funding. We'll give you just this per pupil minimum aid amount of $75 per pupil, which is something, certainly, but not able to keep up with the cost of increases of all the things we just talked about in your budget. Again, true of 85% of all communities in the state. So right now, as of the governor's budget for FY27, you have 272 communities like Carver who are finding themselves in this spot where the state aid is just not keeping up with all the other costs you need to operate a school department, right? Do you want to add to this?
No, I was just going to make sure I highlighted.
I forgot about that. Thank you. So that's the big picture. That's the number that you see on the warrant. That's a little bit about state aid that's helpful to keep in the back of your mind. The other part's smaller, but I think it's helpful and instructive to think about all aspects of your revenue, so we'll drill into grants and offsets. Grants and offsets sort of have 2 different flavors, 2 different kinds. The first is the annual funding. Typically, that's funding you can rely on. It's never a guarantee, but it's pretty close to a guarantee. We have a couple of buckets here in Carver. The first one I'll share with you is Circuit Breaker. 10,000-foot view about Circuit Breaker for our students in particular. I talked about some kiddos who have severe disabilities and have needs that sometimes can't be met here in our schools, need to go out to some private places to get like those specific services. Those are really expensive, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so what the state has done is they said, hey, look, we recognize that's super expensive. We're going to have you as a community cover part of that, and then we're going to reimburse you part of that. That's Circuit Breaker at a 10,000-foot view. It's a year in arrears, a year behind, essentially. And so that number you see in FY27 is a reflection of FY26. Why that's important is that when we talked about that 9,000 series reducing, that hasn't caught up to your revenue. So in FY28, that Circuit Breaker number is going to go down, which is good. We want more kids here in Carver. That is ultimately costing less money to you as a community member, a taxpayer locally, and as a state taxpayer. But it does mean that there's going to be that lag in revenue as well for 28. I'm going to go to the next one. School choice is pretty straightforward. The state sets a $5,000 per student enrollment figure. We multiply that by the number of projected students, and that's how you get that figure there. Preschool is also pretty straightforward. That's just a reflection of your 5-year average for collections on preschool. The last one new from our previous conversation I want to make sure we underscore. So we've talked a little bit about Title I and some of the proposals at the federal level that would reduce some of the federal funding. Carver Public Schools writes the better part of $750,000 in grants. One of those large ones happens to be Title I, and for whatever reason, that happens to be in the crosshairs at the federal level. In some of your previous iterations, you hear this theme with me, I tend to be very conservative with my figures. There were some proposals to reduce Title I by up to 27%. Those haven't materialized, but they haven't been ignored either. Nothing has happened, right? In addition, there's been some sort of state conversation about the total number of kiddos who are low income at the state level. Title I is for low income support, ultimately. And there's indications that as a state, our appropriation may go down as well. Now, it hasn't happened again in Carver, so we don't have our final number for Carver. Appropriations for this stuff don't come out until the summer, unfortunately. We typically say very conservative, but we're taking a slightly more aggressive stance on this and just level funding it to FY26 figures in an effort to help balance our budget. We'll know more when actuals come in for the summer, but I thought this was important just to flag sort of the pivot on that stance.
Yep.
Yeah. And lastly, you have your one-time funds. You've heard me say it too much, I'm sure. Best rule of thumb is to have $0 here. That's your goal. Ultimately, this is using one-time money to pay for recurring costs. However, as I mentioned at the outset, you do have some savings coming in now from some of the special education savings, some of the transportation savings. So there's sort of two buckets there. One is just the sped increment component of school choice. That's something like $12,000 and change. But the big one there is through Chapter 71, which allows some prepayment of some of that tuition funding. So we'll use some of the savings in special education now to prepay some of those tuitions in the upcoming year. Not an ideal circumstance, but given the financial landscape as we see it right now, helps you balance your budget without doing anything exotic, right? This last one is my favorite graphic of all, ultimately. Again, in blue, it shows you, this is your Chapter 70 in local taxes. That's typical. In brown, you see your annual offsets. It's that green topper, right? And our goal will ultimately be to not have the green topper. We've been making progress toward that post-pandemic, which is excellent. Yeah. So, talked a little bit about the expenses and how that's structured, talked about the revenue and the different streams and the state component of that. Let's take a moment and do some drill down at the executive level as well. And at this point, we'll take a second and just talk a little bit about the additional programming and staffing that we've been chatting about as a community, as well as some of those reductions that are only through attrition, through retirement. Yeah? Hey, so at a high level, this is your level service operating budget. These are all the figures we just talked about. All in, $28.8 million operating. You back out your revenue and your offsets. You include that local warrant number, which is the state aid plus the local aid. It puts you at a negative about $163,000. Just level services as is. It also includes all the latest retirement data, so those have been changing as we know. It includes the special education out-of-district estimates, which continue to improve, as well as those electoral costs on the alternative on-bill credit agreement, right? And reflects the level funding for the federal grants, okay?
Yep.
Your next slide shows the additional programming, additional staff. So there's 4 sort of components of that we've been talking about. The first is an additional driver to add to the preschool route. The second is special education 101 ESP, necessary for one of our kiddos' needs. And then a 0.5 FTE for music, which is a reflection of the need and demand for student engagement over in middle school and high school music. And then a 0.5 FTE TV studio, again, sort of both driven by enrollment. You have increased enrollment in those areas, you have to have increased staffing to cover the sections. All in, it's about $118,000. Yeah? That brings your deficit, if you add those positions in, to about $281. Okay? So now let's talk about how we sort of get back to zero. In the upper right, you see the official term is called reductions in force. But in this case, you've got sort of 4 actions that are driven entirely by retirement. Right? So the goal here is that no staff member would lose a position, a job, but that they'd see the positions that would not be filled due to retirement, and that they wouldn't need to be filled because the enrollment's not there to continue to support it, ultimately, right? The first would be a special education ESP at the middle high school. A history teacher, middle high school, again, showing the enrollment in the sections that Mr. Mills and Mr. Neef talked a little about at our last meeting. We have that restructuring we talked about with French and Portuguese. We have a teacher who is retiring and going to incrementally reduce down from 1.0, right? This FY27 will be 0.6. And then just 1.0 at grade 1. All in your savings, about $234,000. You see a balance of about just shy of negative $50,000 with that in mind.
And we did talk about this last time in terms of that transition to Portuguese. So we realized this is kind of a one-time savings. So that teacher is going to go down. And then the next year they're going to step down to 0.2. And then, but at that point, then we'd have to hire an additional teacher. So, and that will be reflected in the FY28 budget. But I just wanted to highlight that piece again.
Thank you.
And Ron, remind me really quickly what the enrollment is for grade 1? Do we have the numbers?
Grade 1 has 90 students.
Only 90, okay,
So
that's what I thought.
if grade 1 next year will have 90 students. So currently 6 teachers in grade 1, it would be an average class size of 15. By not replacing the retirement and having 5 teachers in grade 1, it would be an average class size of 18.
Perfect, thank you.
And then,
And I can do the social studies numbers if you want as well.
Might as well,
I
just
have-
for
I
the
have
community.
them. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So our projections next year for social studies, currently in grade 6, the average class size is 20. Grade 7 is 21. Grades 8 through 12 is 16. With the reduction, grade 6, and actually this is a work in progress. We might actually be adding we've started having the numbers come in, so students have signed up for their courses. So this is still a work in progress, but I will say this, the numbers clearly indicate that we're going to be able to cover all the sections, offer all the courses that we offered this year with the reduction of not replacing the one social studies teacher. And we might actually add, this isn't solid yet, but I'll mention it. We might add a section in 6th grade. So right now we're projecting 6th grade to be an average class size of 25. But that's because we're going to have one team in 6th grade because the class coming in is 98, I think. So 98 or 97. But looking at the numbers, we might actually be able to add a 6th grade section in, so that would go back to about 20 per class.
Okay.
7th grade would be 20 per class, and then we're estimating 8 through 12 electives, high school courses would be 20. So even with the not replacing the retirement, we're still looking pretty across the board around an average class size of 20 in our social studies classes at the middle high school.
And do we have any numbers yet on students leaving, going to Rising Tide, whatever, for next year? No, not yet.
Not officially, no.
Okay, perfect.
We know the number of students who've been accepted to Old Colony, but they have a time period to accept their acceptance, and so those numbers aren't official yet.
Perfect.
yeah, so with that in mind, it brings you really to your last slide in the summary, and that's the way to sort of close that small gap at the end. And if you would just click the...
I'm going to stay, since we did the numbers, we might as well do all the numbers. I have them in front of me, so we should do all the numbers. So when we're looking at these reductions, so we're talking about the inclusion ESP at the middle high school. So originally our proposal was to reduce 2 inclusion ESPs. This is down to 1. And currently in grades 9 through 12, we have 42 students in inclusion. The caseload in 9th grade is 9, the caseload in 10th grade is 9, the caseload in 11th grade is 13, the caseload in 12th grade is 11. That's this year. Next year, the projection would be 11 to 12 in 9th grade, because we're not sure, the Old Colony students aren't finalized. And then the other ones just moved out, so grade 10 would be 9, grade 11 would be 9, grade 12 would be 13. So we currently have 42 inclusion students in grades 9 through 12. We have 4 teachers, 1 at each grade level, and 2 ESPs. We can definitely cover, next year the projection is we'd have 43 inclusion special ed students in grades 9 through 12, with 4 teachers and 1 ESP. And with that staffing level, we're going to be able to meet the needs of all those students' IEPs, what's required on them, by having 5 staff members available to support 43 inclusion students.
Thank you. Can you just remind people of what that looks like, of what an inclusion student, just...
Quick summary, I could spend a half hour, you can do a half hour presentation on that.
That they're in the classroom, that it's not a separate...
An inclusion student is not in a program, they're taking all general ed regular classrooms, and depending on what their IEP calls for, they might require support in that classroom. So some students may require support just in their English classroom, some English and math, some English, math, and science. So depending on these 43 students, because of special education, what their requirements are of where they have support in the classroom may vary for every single student.
Yep.
But we're going to have 5 adults, we're going to be able to go out into those classrooms to cover those needs until they have that schedule out. The other piece of this, if you want to dive into it a little bit deeper, is we do have a language-based program at the middle high school, which has students in that language-based program that has 2 ESPs. Those 2 ESPs are also in some of those language-based programs, that's a program where the students take some of their classes in the program, and they take some of their classes outside of the program. But there's also 2 ESPs who go out to support the students outside of the program, who are in regular classes. So they would also be available to possibly support regular inclusion students. So when you look at that whole matrix, we're going to be able to cover the needs of our students that are required on their IEPs, and actually maybe even additional support with the current staffing here, as proposed.
Thank you for that
But
clarification.
since we started looking at the numbers, I think we should look at the numbers for each position and have the community hear that again.
Absolutely, I greatly appreciate that. I just wanted people to understand what that piece of it would look like, and that students would still be served and have their needs met.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
That's really the lion's share. The last portion is really bringing you across the finish line. We talked a little bit about that at the grants and offsets. That $47,000 is in one-time funding. Again, a small portion from some one-time, sped increment, but the large majority there is the, Chapter 71 prepay. It balances your budget. And I guess the last thing I'll just say as we bring this to a close, if you go to the very last slide, we're not asking for any action right now. March 23rd will be ultimately the vote, and town meeting on the 7th, certainly. Every budget process is this iterative process where we continue to identify our needs, try to identify creative ways to sort of meet those needs. No budget's perfect, but I think we're really excited to see this has been the best iteration we've had of a balanced budget to date, and are just appreciative of all the people who sort of helped make this happen. I get to give you the summary here, but all of our staff members, all of our school leaders, all of our colleagues over in town hall that sort of help collaborate to bring this to fruition have just been incredible this year, especially.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would add, I think we should point out the distinctions from our last presentation, which we didn't do actually here with a slide, in terms of what the proposed reductions were. In our last presentation, the proposed reductions were 2 ESPs at the middle high school, non-replace the social studies teacher, which is still here, the reduction of a physical education teacher, which would have been a staff member, and a reduction of an elementary school teacher, but we didn't have the retirement, so that would have been a staff member. And at the time, the ESPs would have both been staff members. So we've made a little bit of shift where we were possibly losing the ESPs. We thought there might have been a retirement, but we wasn't 100% sure when we were there. So at that time, we were probably looking at a little bit more reductions, but those reductions also included 4 people. So tonight's presentation, we're saying that that's all going to be able to done through attrition and retirements, and we're not proposing the reduction of any position that would be a person who's currently employed by the district. So just make that distinction between where we were last time and where we are now. And then that Ron highlighted some of these pieces, but we've had some changes. We had an additional retirement. We've become a little bit more aggressive in terms of the Title I. The energy credits is a huge saving, is a savings in terms of electricity. So there's some opportunities that we had to close that gap. And we've taken advantage of those opportunities to close that gap and present a budget that would not have any staff member lose their position.
Which is what we wanted.
Right, yeah, which is the
we
ultimate
work for.
goal. Yeah. Thank you very much, Ron. I know we all appreciate the levels of detail that you go into, the time that you take to explain each piece and each part. I know a lot of work goes into this outside of you, but I know that you also put a lot of effort into it, so thank you very much. And just thank you for being creative and finding that energy credit it's massive, so yay. So thank you very much.
I don't know if there's any additional questions or Stephanie, I know, just to give that opportunity.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I don't have any
remarks?
questions per se, but it's something like the budget every year is like a moving target. Like we go through several iterations of this starting in January. So it's nice to see that we're trending in the right direction. And I appreciate all the hard work for that. Because we certainly don't want a deficit. We certainly don't want to do reductions, of course. And we want all of our students to have exactly what they need and what they deserve. So I appreciate the help.
100%. Very well said. Anyone else?
I can only echo what Kelly just said. I appreciate all the work and the effort. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because like Ron had mentioned, there are several districts on the South Shore and across the state that are looking at
Millions.
dozens of reductions and millions
Millions.
and millions of dollars in shortfall. And a lot of that is because that green is so small, because we were so conservative with ESSER funding and funding during COVID and making sure that it was not used for recurring expenses, that we didn't build it into the salary schedule. We didn't put ourselves into a place where we would have to have massive reductions. Like a lot of other districts didn't have the choice, and that's what they had to do to meet their needs at that time, and now they're having to backpedal from that, and it's really devastating a lot of communities. So Carver is very fortunate that we are conservative. Okay, so if no one on the committee has any other questions, I had moved comments from the general public from the beginning of the meeting till now, because there were so many changes from our last budget presentation to now. I wanted everyone to have a chance to hear and digest a little bit of what was just presented. So if anyone has anything they would like to share, you're more than welcome to come up to the table. It's a 3-minute time limit per person. I just want to be clear about how it works. You're welcome to share your thoughts and ideas, ask for information, ask questions. It is not a question and answer portion of our meeting. So you are welcome to send an email with any questions that you may have asked tonight. We will certainly pay attention to what is asked and what information is requested, and be mindful of that moving forward and making sure that we do our best to get those questions answered.
I also opened the chat, and because the chat was closed, but I've opened the chat at home.
Excellent.
So if someone wants to participate from home, they can certainly put their name in the chat as well.
Yes, thank you. So yes, so just to reiterate, if there's someone that is online, and if you would like to be recognized to speak during public comment, if you could please enter your name into the chat, and you will be recognized, as well as those in the room who may wish to speak. Is there anyone?
And no one in the chat either.
No one in the chat. Okay. So with that, I will close comments from the general public, and we will go right into recommendations from the superintendent with the financial update. Back to Ron.
We'll go back to Ron for a quick financial update.
This one will be brief. Well, again, much more brief than your budget. Financial update, nothing new right now out of Washington. I think I had mentioned at the outset, though, that the IG's office has recently released a special education transportation study. It's about 100 pages. I've linked it there. It's some dense reading, but I actually think it's like super helpful from like a state level, right? It's something that we, business managers, superintendents, school committees around the Commonwealth have sort of been asking for. The legislature delivered on that in this last round. Because transportation is such a big part of budgets and an escalating part of budgets across the Commonwealth, particularly special education transportation, they asked the IG's office to come in and just do a statewide analysis of what are some of those driving costs, what is the landscape in terms of a snapshot. They used FY24 actuals, and then what are some recommendations. I'll give you the Cliff Notes if you don't have time to read the 100 pages there. Big picture, it really does focus a lot on communities that have contracted for-profit yellow bus service for both their regular ed and special education. That's typically where we've seen the massive, sharp increase in costs. The IG's office is pretty clear about their analysis there. They've identified a couple of factors. Primarily, though, there are simply fewer players in the space. And so if you've played them in game Monopoly, like that's what you're starting to look at. Fewer players, fewer bids, more opportunity to sort of consolidate across the board, which has really ramped up those costs. Carver is fortunate in that we own and operate our own transportation program. Certainly not perfect, but has a lot of benefits. Mr. Neef sort of alluded to, our ability to do some pivoting in the face of the blizzard. But just from a financial perspective, we're not for profit, right? Carver is Carver. And so the goal is just to utilize our resources, provide transportation for kiddos, and not include a profit. So some of that doesn't apply to us. There's a couple of recommendations they had that I highlighted for you. I'll just take a moment to underscore them. The first recommendation, 2A, is that the legislature rethink the timing of circuit breaker, and there's a transportation component of circuit breaker. I mentioned in my budget presentation that circuit breaker is a year in arrears. The IG's office would propose that the mechanism exists to make that true to the year versus be a year in arrears. The second, which is my humble opinion, I think the most powerful recommendation, 4C, is that DESE explore the feasibility of establishing some pricing structure. Right now, it's unfettered capitalism, right? So they can charge whatever they want, and if you have no choice, you pay what you've got to pay. And having some regulatory components on that might be helpful. The state, through OSD, Operational Services Division, already sets some rules around the tuition costs for special education kiddos. They set some parameters around those costs, and even those spike sometimes. But it's regulated in that regard. That isn't emulated in transportation at all, and probably should be in some capacity. So I would be really excited to see some action, either through the regulation, DESE, through regulatory, or even legislative if necessary. And the last, which I think is very straightforward, DESE should encourage regional coordination of program design, location, help each other where you can. Carver participates in that in a little bit. For example, kiddos who go to some of the vocationals that are not Old Colony, we work in collaboration with Silver Lake and Plymouth. And so the three of us get together, get one transportation, pick up the kiddos, get them to where they've got to be. So more of that is what the IG's office recommends. So those are good recommendations, helpful to be more efficient with the taxpayer dollar. The last thing I'll just say is sort of a shout out to our community. Again, a lot of their analysis talks about like these heat maps of cost, where some of the big costs are across the Commonwealth. The takeaway is there's no one place in the Commonwealth that is doing better than not, right? It's not like the West is doing really well and has this transportation cost under control and the East is not, or vice versa. But if you see Carver, bottom right-hand corner, it's that little, thank you, Mr. Neeb, it's that little white bit there. This is a map of the cost, annual cost for municipalities or regionals for student ridership in special education. And Carver sits as the lowest category of cost per student for ridership. And again, a testament to the investments that the community has made in owning and operating its own transportation program, 100%. A testament to our special education team and our transportation team and their collaboration with each other and then with our colleagues in other regions. So certainly not perfect, but I think it's a nice feather in our cap in terms of the IG's analysis. Next item is just your grant awards. You have just one new grant this year, this month, excuse me. State grant appropriation for $11,050. Again, kudos to Mr. Mills.
Yeah, I was going to touch on this one just briefly. Oh, sure. Just, and more information will come. We'll probably put a presentation together for the spring on this. Okay. So we're excited about this grant opportunity that the DESE was looking at. They had reached out to us. They had actually reached out to us in terms of applying for the grant because of our work with Innovation Career Pathways. And it's a new concept of this starting in essence where you can do one of two things with the grant money. Number one, a teacher can have an externship. So you can have one of your teachers who teaches in a pathway. It has to be one of our innovation pathways, so it either has to be clean energy, EAS, environmental agricultural sciences, or MET. It has to be one of those three pathways teachers, and there's only 4 of them. But those 4 teachers actually will be paid for the grant to go partner with an area business that does their work. And so 2 of our teachers are going to be taking advantage of that, either over April vacation or over the end of the year or on a Saturday. They're going to go work with this company that specializes in the work they're doing with our students in manufacturing, in agricultural sciences, or clean energy, and they're paid through the grant. The second opportunity with this is students can also be paid for the grant. So students who are currently interning in MET, EAS, or clean energy, they can go and work beyond the school day, so they can't get paid for their time that they're interning during the school day, but they can stay for extended hours or weekends and be paid through the grant. So we have teachers and students who will be doing both of those things. And this is an experimental program that DESE has put together just this year. They want to try it out, they want to get some feedback, and I think there's some thought process of expanding this grant in the future. So we're kind of piloting this grant. We're one of the districts that's piloting this grant for DESI. So we're excited about this opportunity, and I'll probably put maybe May or June, we'll have a presentation that says, hey, this is how this went. Here's the teachers who went out and did an externship, here's the students who did an externship, and this is what we took away as valuable from that program. So we're excited about that great opportunity. More information to come.
Yeah, that's great. That's excellent. Thank you.
Now, just from a purely financial perspective, can we do a vote to just accept?
Yeah, we have to.
Oh, yeah,
we have to accept
absolutely.
it.
Yep.
Okay. I move to accept the Innovations Pathways Externship Grant of $11,050.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We'll get that set up.
You're welcome.
And the last is just your quarter 3 warrants to date. We'll just ask you to approve those, and we'll finalize that.
Okay, I move to approve the FY26 warrants review tonight.
I second.
Again, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
you very much. I believe we're going to stay with Ron.
Well, either one.
Or both?
You gonna do it?
I'll do it, and then we'll
Okay.
just hear a different voice.
Okay.
And then-
For the-
and then if you have questions for Ron, you can ask him.
Okay, so student activity account, new account, and fund transfer.
So we've talked about in the past that the school committee has to vote or create school student activity accounts.
Yep.
Yes.
And the science department is actually, the science department currently has an account called Whale Watch Field Trip, which is very specific. It's money that's raised for the Whale Watch Field Trip. Except they don't always go on the Whale Watch anymore. Things have shifted.
Yep.
So they're looking to create a new account, which would be called Science Field Trips, more generic, more general, that would be open for raising monies that would be going to student activities to pay for the science field trip. And they want to transfer the balance from the Whale Watch field trip into the science field trip. So there's two things we're looking for. One, the creation of a new student activities account called Science Field Trips, and then a transfer of the balance of $1,025.25 from Whale Watch field trips to science field trips, and a closing of the Whale Watch field trip account.
Okay.
So they're just looking to do a different field trip than the Whale Watch, and would like to use some of the monies in the student activities account that's in Whale Watch. Ron, I don't know if you get it.
That's it.
So
We're good.
a motion, we would recommend a motion to support that.
Okay, I move to create a student activities account titled Science Field Trips and to transfer the balance of $1,025.25 from the Whale Watch Field Trip Student Activities account.
I second.
Well, hold on. Do we want to do these separately or together?
Your choice.
I also move to close the Whale Watch Field Trip account once the balance has been transferred.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have fun on those science field trips.
Thank you.
Yes, school
Oh, here
calendar.
So this year's calendar, and so Gina did an update to our calendar, put nice little snow day graphics on it. I like them. I don't know if anybody else likes them,
Thank you,
but
Gina.
I like the
Just
snow.
because we wanna be
I like the
reminded.
snow day
Right.
graphics on the calendar.
I think it was a
And-
historic blizzard, so.
But ultimately, we wanted, for the community, there are two pieces here. First, there was some discussion about, first, with the snow days that we've had, so we've had 6 snow days. That would actually move our last day of school till Wednesday, June 24th. It was originally scheduled for Monday the 15th, but we have the Juneteenth holiday, so adding 6 days, 16th, 17th, 18th, 22nd, 23rd, 24th. So based on the current calendar, the last day of school would be June 24th. We're actually in a better position than many districts, because some districts took the 2 weeks at Christmas, some districts started after Labor Day. Those districts are all actually up against June 30th. So there's been a couple drivers of this conversation. One, the state is, DESI's actually put together a waiver process where districts can submit a waiver to reduce their number of school days. But the first caveat on that waiver is you have to be going to school till at least June 26th. So we don't qualify for that waiver.
Nope.
The second caveat of that waiver was that you'd have to go on Good Friday. And then internally, there were some teachers who were asking and saying, hey, would the district ever consider having school on Good Friday? We've had school on Good Friday in the past in other years. And DESI is part of their process actually saying that would be a requirement. For you to apply for this waiver, you'd have to go on Good Friday.
Okay.
The other thing that's a part of this is that DESI also made it very clear when they came out with this whole waiver process, which I knew was always the rule, that you can't replace snow day that was a full day of school with a half day.
Yeah.
You have to do full day for full day. So all 6 of our snow days were full days of school, so they'd have to be replaced with full days of school, including on Good Friday. They said if you're going to go on Good Friday, it would have to be a full day of school if it's replacing a snow day. So then we just asked the question, worked with Dave, who's here in the audience, in terms of reaching out to the staff and union and saying, in our contract, teachers are allowed to take Good Friday as a religious holiday.
Yeah.
So if we said if we had school on Good Friday, if we considered this, if I brought this to the committee, how many teachers would utilize their ability to take Good Friday as a religious holiday, especially if we had a full day of school? And the survey results, 17% of the 48 teachers who responded said they would use that as a religious holiday. Obviously we didn't have all teachers respond, but if we extrapolate that data out, if we just use a 17% number, that's just not a realistic number for the school district to open school if we know 17% of the teachers, or somewhere around there, are going to take that day as a religious holiday, which they have the right to under the contract. So we're not making any proposal to add Good Friday as a day of school, but we did want to notify. So that's kind of how this ended up on the agenda, and we wanted to make sure it was on the agenda because these discussions were happening, and if we were going to think about having Good Friday be a day of school, we'd have to make a decision on that pretty quickly to notify the community. But I at this time cannot recommend that, so I'd recommend we just stay with June 24th. So June 24th would be the last day of school. No action required from the committee. That's just the progression of the 6 days carried out. And then, I don't want to be too early. So I'm not going to put out any official notification that the 24th is the last day of school.
No.
We'll wait a couple weeks
Don't
to make
jinx
sure.
us.
No, not jinx
Do not
us.
jinx us.
I
No
know there's been
April
some
Fool's
talk
storms.
about it getting colder next week and maybe some snow or maybe some ice. Hopefully that doesn't happen. So we'll wait till April 1st maybe, and then we'll say if this is the last day, the last day of school will be June 24th. And we'll put this calendar back out to people just to make sure we don't have any changes in the next couple weeks. Not that you can't have a day after April 1st, but that doesn't happen very often.
Do you remember the year, though, that we
We
got
had
the
an April 1st
snowstorm on April 1st?
We had an April Fool's Day snowstorm. That was a long time ago. It was in the
1997.
I was going to say it was in the 90s, but we had an April 1st. We did have an April
And it
1st day.
was like,
Oh, it was
a big
bad.
one.
It was like 2.5 feet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a big one. It was a 30-incher. I remember that.
Oh, yeah, me too.
So I just want just a point of clarification. So that the 24th, as it stands right now, would be a full day or a half day?
No, half day.
It could be, okay.
We replaced the 6 full days.
Okay.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the last day of school is always scheduled as a
Yes.
half day of school. So the 15th would become a full day of school.
Okay.
So that's how we got our 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 22nd, 23rd would be
Okay.
full days of school. 24th would be a half day of school. Any questions on this year's calendar?
I'm looking at it right now.
Anyone?
Next year's calendar. Now we'll go
Next
on to
year's.
Now
the
we'll go
next
next
agenda
year's.
item is next year's calendar.
I have to say, I did notice a lot of districts are going back
Well,
last week of August.
this
Which
is,
doesn't usually happen. It's usually us and not other districts.
Yeah, true.
Labor Day, this year was supposed to be.
Labor
we were
Day
suppo-
isn't till the
We were supposed to have a long summer this year.
Yep.
It was supposed to be an 11-week summer because Labor Day last year was as early as it can be.
Yep.
Now Labor Day swings back and Labor Day is September 7th. It's as late as it can be.
Yeah.
And so, but our 6 snow days reduced our long summer. It made a long February vacation is what it made.
Yep.
That was the trade-off, which I'm sure most people would not take that trade-off. But so this calendar mirrors similar to past calendars. So we'd have 2 teacher professional days before the school year starts. We'd take the 4 days for the Labor Day weekend, September 4th and Monday the 7th. A little different than this year. This year, because the way Veterans Day fell, we aligned one of the teacher professional days with Veterans Day,
Oh, cool.
which actually had us not go to school a lot in November. So this calendar is a little different. We don't have a teacher professional day in November, and we have a teacher professional day in October along the Columbus Day weekend, which we have. In the past, there's been support from the community and the school community to put the teacher professional days near other long weekends. So we put it in on October 9th as the teacher day. Then we also have our other teacher professional day aligned with our 8th grade field trip. Tentatively, we would say that would be Thursday, December 10th, and then the teacher professional day would be the day after on Tuesday the 11th. Looking at the holiday break,
Doesn't look bad.
The 23rd would be a half day. We go to school on 21st and 22nd. I think there may be some schools that take the 23rd off, but right now, the way the calendar is structured, our last day of school would be the 18th.
Okay.
So if you added an additional day at the holiday break, that would bring you into that week of the 21st as the last day of school. And also get you closer in terms of snow days. If we had, obviously this year was an unusual year, but you got to think about those impacts. We changed some of the half days in terms of what day of the week they were and where they fell a little bit. So we moved some of our half days. We moved a day. We moved a day around February. So that day was February 10th. We moved to the first week in February. We moved our parent conferences to all Thursdays.
Perfect.
But in terms of the number of half days, none of that has changed. So otherwise it's pretty consistent with past calendars. Graduation would move back next year. Graduation's early this year because school was out early. So our seniors, seniors do not need to make up those days. As long as for your seniors, as long as your approved calendar has the last day of school for students 12 days, no more than 12 days after graduation. Our original calendar had the last day of school for all students 11 days after graduation, so we were within the guidelines. And snow days do not impact that. And DESE reiterated that when they sent out their memo this week about redoing calendars, just because there's a reality piece of, some people have already made a lot of plans around graduation, and they don't want districts to be moving their graduations based on snow days in March or in April. But next year graduation would go back to June 6th. Because that's just the way the calendar kind of cycles back next year. So all those days cycle back. So any questions about next year's calendar? I mean, sometimes the committee has looked at it and said, can you look at this or look at that? And we've made some changes. So, the recommendation would be to vote this tonight, but if people want to take it and hold it off and vote it at the next meeting and think about it a little bit, that's fine as well.
No, I think it looks good, and I appreciate the fact that some of them you moved some of them to Fridays. I think it's easier for families. I mean, granted, the holidays, we have no control over. But, no, I think it looks good.
Looks good to me.
Anyone else?
No? Wow, this is the first time I think we've all been in agreement.
Right, I know.
All right. Are we ready? I move to approve the 2026-2027 school calendar as presented.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Again, no comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so for all the juniors in the room, you graduate on June 6th of 27. Woohoo! Very exciting. It'll be here before you know it, trust me. Okay. So that takes us to, that was quick. It takes us to reports from the school committee. I know that I have a few things on here. I'm sure everyone's shocked about that. But does anyone have anything they would like to report out?
No, I just want to say thank you to our student ambassadors who came to speak today. It was always my favorite part of the meetings, and I really love it when they come. And thank you to all you guys for your patience and your behavior. Very good tonight, love it. No disruptions, I like it. Not that you usually are disruptive, but, so I appreciate you coming. I know that it's your service hours. We appreciate you coming and at least learning about kind of what we do, how we handle things for your school. Yeah, I think that's it for me.
Okay.
Just thank you, and thank you to Ron.
Hear, hear.
Thanks, Ron.
Anyone else? Okay, so one of the things I wanted to mention was the Massachusetts Association of School Committees just sent out an email regarding their annual conference that's happening in November of 26. It's moved from the Cape where it's been for a very, very long time, and it's going to be in Danvers. So it's going to be on the North Shore. They're trying to have the location switch so it can reach different groups of people. So I just wanted to mention that was published, and also they are looking.
Did it give us dates?
Yes, it's November 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Oh, that's not bad. Okay, good.
And it's the Doubletree by Hilton, which has a water park.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down for a water
So,
park.
I'm sure we'll all be out there at the water.
so
I will be. I love a water park.
And along those lines, I was going to say they're actually looking for proposals for people to host a conference workshop. So I just thought I would share that in case there's anyone in our district that would be interested in doing that. I know a lot of feedback that I receive is people are jealous that we own our own buses. I'm like, well, that's been a community thing for a long time, and we're very fortunate
We are.
to be in that situation. So I just wanted to mention that. There's a form available online. I don't know if, Scott, you want to workshop it, or Ron or John, or I'm sure there's some best practice that we have right here that other people would benefit from.
Pathways, maybe?
Because we have a lot of wonderful things that happen in our district every day.
We do.
And then the other thing I just wanted to quickly mention is the NSBA annual conference is also coming up, which is just, I'm very excited because it's in San Antonio, Texas. And that is in April, which I will be attending. It's April 10th to the 12th in San Antonio. A little bit of warmth. There are some great exhibitors and some great keynote speakers, so looking forward to gaining some best practices to bring back and share with our district. And then just super quick, I want to again just reiterate the MASC Day on the Hill is the 29th?
March 30th.
30th, okay. I'm like, the board meeting's the 29th, like, close, is the 30th. So I know a few of us are attending. Hopefully we'll have some students that might
Yeah,
want
we
to join
meant that,
us.
we were supposed to ask our student advisory council students, which we didn't,
Yes.
but we will.
Did not.
I will ask them
Yes.
this week sometime.
Reach out and see if anyone wants to join us. What was the update with Chef?
So Chef is going to come.
Okay.
He's decided not to bring any students. He was hoping his students could participate at least some
Yeah.
level, and they, in essence, said, no, your students would be just 100% observers. And he decided that he'll go and be an observer. So he's
Okay.
going to go up with us that day, and he's going to come. And then the plan would be that our culinary students would run a table next year at the event.
Excellent.
Awesome.
So one of the highlights of Day on the Hill is students from culinary schools across the state prepare lunch for everyone in the Great Hall. So it's a great opportunity to
And
interact
so
with
next year, our
different
Carver
so-
students will be part of the lunch
Yeah.
in the Great Hall for MASC. And this year, Chef's just going to observe.
So, yeah, very, very exciting. Another great opportunity. With that, it's 8:03. Our next meeting is
March
the
23rd, Monday, March 23rd.
So 2 weeks. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, everyone. Someone would like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the March 9th meeting, open session of the Carver School Committee.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:04 PM on March 9th,
Free.
2026. You are all free to have your
Free at
papers
last.
signed.
It sounds like